So now I just want to talk a little bit about loops. And there's actually, in a lot of languages, by the way, this is the case, but in C# as well, this is the case. There are three constructs for loops. One is typically do it at least once. One is do it a certain number of times, and then one is do it maybe or what I would basically say 0 to any number of times. And we kind of saw some of that in Python as well. This is not a loop. This is a straight sequence. When I run it, you'll see basically all it's doing is it's producing counter is assigned, or counter is assigned 1, and then basically printing it. But what I could do is I could do something like this. I could go do, and then hit the double tab. So do while true. That's a neat one. So if I kind of go over here and put my little print statement in there. So do this while true. So I'm going to basically print this counter. And then what's the true? Well, I'll tell you what, do it while the counter is less than 6, we'll say. Just because I want it to be, 6. I want it to be kind of smaller on the console. Now, if I ran this now, this would be bad news, because do you see anything incrementing the counter? There's nothing incrementing the counter. What's going to happen is the processing is going to go do. It's going to fall right into here. And then when after it executes that, it's going to say, hey, is the counter less than 6? Yes, it is. And so it's going to go up. It's going to go 0 to any number of times, in this case, an infinite amount of times. So what I need to do is I need to have an incrementer. And so that's what I'm going to do right there. So this guy will increment the counter. So let's run it and see what happens. So we get basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now at the fifth iteration, it's going to go, printing counters equal to 5, adds it, it becomes 6. It then interrogates it. Is this less than 6? No, it's not. And so then it falls out. I tell you one thing I should probably do too is have a nice little print statement at the end, where I'm going to basically say console right line finished, and put a little semicolon there. So we'll see what's happening outside of the loop. So off we go, and finished. Awesome. So that's a do while loop. It's going to do it at least once, and then interrogate it, right? So notice here the counter is equal to 1. If I said that the counter's got to be less than 0, for example, watch what happens when I run it. You'll still see that it did it at least once, and then it basically checked. Okay, so that's the at least once. Now, the other way to do this kind of stuff is, instead of a do while loop, have your while at the top. So what I could do is say, instead of do, I could say while the counter is less than 0. So now in this case, it's not going to do it at all. It's going to go finished, because it did it, like it didn't do it at all, right? So it did it 0 amount of times. If I basically said do it while the counter is less than 5, I go run, what we're going to see is we're going to see it doing it 4 times, right? So there's sort of a do while and a while comparison. And it's, it's a good question, when to use which, and it really depends on the logic you're trying to sort of deal with. The other thing that I would probably be tempted to show you, which I may as well do it in this video, is the for. For is a loop structure, similar in Python again, that will do it a certain number of times. And so what you do for the for is, instead of while, you go for, and I'm going to say here that the counter is going to be, no, I can't just say counter. I have to define it. So I'm going to actually go for counter, and I'm going to assign it as 1. So that's it's going to take 3 arguments, and that's one of them. The second argument is when I want it to stop. So counter is less than 5. And then what do you want to do? And I'm going to say, please increment the counter. All right. Now it's mad at me probably because counter is already, it's kind of defined up here. Let's see if I take that out. There you go. Yeah. So that's a scoping issue. But anyway, so for counter is equal to 1. And actually, is it equal? Yeah, I guess for counter is equal to 1. Counter is less than 5, increment counter. We do not need, nor should we be incrementing the counter anymore, because we're taking care of that in the for loop. So let's do that, and let's run it, and let's see what happens here. All right, so And actually, you know what? Maybe another way to have done that is say equals. Let's make it equal to 5. So let's go run. And it's mad at me because that's a good point. That's a good point, Grant. That's an assignment. This is a comparison. We need to have a comparison operator. Double equals. Run it again. And it goes finished. All right. Oh, you know what? This is going well. It's less than 5. Yeah, sure. That's more like a while loop. Yeah, I get it. I get it. So when I assign counter being 1 and then I say, is it counter equal to 5? It's going to fall out. So let's do that actually. Sure. There we go. All right. Good deal. So while the counter is less than or equal to 5, I get my 5. So that's a good exploration of a for loop. Now, a couple things to add to this understanding, and that one of them is definitely break. So this was sort of available in the if statements as well, more particularly in the switch statements. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add another line where I'm going to say console.write line. I'm going to basically say still going. And I'll put a semicolon at the end of that, and let's run that dude. So I run that dude, we're going to see basically still going, still going, still going all the way up to the end. Now what I'm going to say here is I'm going to say if tap tap. So if something's true, then print still going. Do I want to do it that way? Sure, let's be good. Positive logic. So if something's true, print still going. So let's do that, test that out, make sure it works. Again, for your own exploration, never change too much code at once. You want to make sure that everything's working the way you expected. Okay, so now it's the true. So I'm going to basically say if the counter is so if the counter is greater than 3, print still going. So now what we're going to see is 1, 2, 3, you don't see still going, and then we start seeing still going at 4, and we start seeing still going at 5. Now, there is sort of another way to have written that, and that's where the break's going. So I'm going to take this guy, I'm going to put him at the bottom of the loop, so they're still going, okay? And instead, what I'm going to say is if the counter, actually, if the counter is less than 3, no, if it's greater than 3, if it's greater than 3, break. And you'll see that sort of in the textbook and whatever. And what it's basically saying is that if the counter is greater than 3, we're going to break out and go basically out of the loop. So let's run it again and see what happens. So you'll notice that we get still going, still going, still going. We never really see number 5 because we basically have broken out of it. If I take out that break, like that, for example, and run it again, actually, this might not work because there's no code in there. Yeah, there we can see 5 going on. All right, so tell you what, let's do this. Let's go, if the counter is equal to 3, break. This might be an even better illustration of this. Yeah. So even though the loop would continue on through 5 iterations, I basically stop it right there. I say, if you're equal to 5, get out of Dodge and leave the loop. That's what I'm saying. Now let's compare that with the continue. Continue is another option for how to deal with stuff inside of a loop. And so what happens in continue is that you can see 1, prints still going. 2, prints still going. 3, it goes continue, and so it skips the still going line, and you can see that there's no still going line, and it goes right back up to the loop again. So break leaves the loop, continue drops you to the bottom of the loop, and then you go back up again. So that's the difference between those two, and that's kind of I think that's kind of important as you start getting more complicated with your code, right? So these are all different ways to sort of control the loop structure. You've got the do while, that basically means it's going to do it at least once. You got while, which means it might not ever do it. For means do it a certain number of times. And in all of these constructs, You can add the idea of break, which basically means get out of the loop as soon as this condition is true, or continue, which basically means bypass all future processing and then go back up to the top of the loop, right? So that's kind of some basic loop processing. Definitely, play around with those, and you'll be a better programmer for that.